top story with Evans Mensah.
And top story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion. GASM, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. And nationwide medical health insurance, your healthcare family. It is an unprecedented move that will see water tariffs for all customers slashed by 10%. Customers will also have a total of nearly 15 million cedis credited to the accounts. Now, the sweeping penalties have just been imposed on the Ghana Water Company by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. The commission imposed the penalties after its investigations determined that the water company has been collecting tariffs from you that they did not deserve. In the last hour, top officials at the water company have been summoned into an emergency meeting in a desperate attempt to come up with a plan to stop the order from coming into effect in the next 3 days. In fact, it's coming into effect on Sunday, this very Sunday. Now, we'll hear from the PURC shortly, but first we have details from a statement issued by the Commission tonight. My colleague Joseph Gakpo joins me in the studio with the details. Joseph, what are the facts?
So they give a background indicating that in 2011, the Ghana Water Company entered into a 25-year build, operate and transfer water purchase agreement with the Befesa Desalination Development Ghana Limited, that's Befesa. And that's by that particular agreement, the Ghana Water Company Limited agreed to buy all water produced from the 60,000 meter cube Befesa water desalination plant for supply to Teshinungwa and surrounding areas. Now, the desalination plant commenced production in February 2015, and since the major tariff review of December 2015, the PURC says water tariff approved by the PURC have included the contracted cost of the plant.
In other words,
it mainly has to do with that particular plant.
In other words, there was a plant that we built, the desalination plant, and each time tariffs went up, the tariffs factored in the cost of the plant.
Exactly the case.
Let's go.
And then they go on to say that between January and July 2018, the PURC undertook a number of measures aimed at giving the Ghana Water Company Limited a hearing and a clarification opportunity when it comes to the tariff implication associated with the operation of the desalination plant in question. And that the Commission subsequently issued what they describe as an enforcement notification, which the company failed to comply with. And that's where the PURC raised issues with, that they gave that particular order that they refused to comply with. And subsequent to that, in January 2018, the Commission went on to publish new water tariff, which was supposed to take effect from July 15, which maintained the cost related to the desalination plant in the weighted average water production. And that the Commission's decision to maintain the cost relating to the plant in the tariff was informed by the Ghana Water Company's own decision to operate the desalination plant, which the company communicated to the Commission in a letter dated the 16th of May 2018.
So Ghana Water Company wrote to the Commission and said we will operate the plant and so maintain the tariffs. The new tariffs that you've given us, maintain it because we are operating it. Charge the customers for operating that plant.
And so the PURC says it undertook some monitoring exercises. And in the recent monitoring as at August 23, they established that to date, the Ghana Water Company Limited had failed or refused to allow the desalination plant to operate contrary to the Commission's tariff decision.
Okay.
So the charges were coming in on the assumption that,
the plant was operating
and the cost was factored into it, but then they checked and they realized that wasn't the case.
Okay, so the PURC, having done the investigations, now lays out a series of orders. These are pretty far-reaching orders. First order is what?
They say that there will be the forfeiture of any tariff relating to the desalination plant. And so the PRC says with effect from the 16th of September 2018,
which is this Sunday.
This is this Sunday. The water tariff, which is chargeable by the GWCL, that's the Ghana Water Company Limited, shall be reduced by 8.64%. And that this reduction represents the component of the cost related to the desalination plant approved as part of the July 2018 water tariff decision.
Okay, what about customers? What about the amounts they've already collected over the last few years?
Customers will be getting a refund from the order that's coming from the PLC. And so they are asking that the Ghana Water Company Limited refunds an amount totaling 14,097,146 Ghana cedis only to all customers, and that this amount represents 5-month tariff income unfairly over-recovered by the Ghana Water Company between March 15, 2018, when that new tariff came into being, and September 15, when they are being asked to stop the further charges on that, and that this refund will result in a further 1.41% tariff reduction, which shall be applied between 14 September and December 31. And so the order is that there will be a tariff reduction of 8.64%, but then in addition to that, to recover the amounts taken already, then there will be the addition of the 1.41%. And so between now and December 31st, customers will be enjoying 8.64 plus 1.41% reduction, and then it will revert to just the 8.64 after December 2018.
And 1.41% represents that 40 million
had been taken.
that has to be refunded to customers. But customers are not only getting 40 million, they are getting some additional compensation.
They are getting compensation totaling an amount of 542,938 Ghana cedis and 48 pesos, which will be compensation that's going out to all customers, and that the compensation actually represents 8.627% of the annual capacity charge of the desalination plant, and also what they describe as pro-rated for a 1-month period, and that in tariff revenue terms, the compensation amounts to only 0.03% and is imposed on the Ghana Water Company as a result of the company's non-compliance with the various regulatory directives.
So how what's the percentage, the total cumulative percentage that all this comes down to in terms of how much the customer will eventually take from Ghana Water Company? And
so there's the first bit having to do with 8.64, and then another which is 1.4, and then a further 8.627%, which then totals something in the region of 18% at least between now and the end of the year.
Cumulatively is 10.08.
And so they give the breakdown and say that the tariff for feature in terms of all the items listed above and the compensation shall be summed up, culminating 10.08% tariff reduction on the prevailing water tariff rate to all customers, and that the tariff reduction is taking effect, as you indicated, on September 16, which is this coming Sunday, and shall remain in effect until the desalination plant is put back into operation or until otherwise decided by the Commission. And they go on to say that the refund and compensation to customers shall be reflected in customer bills from September to December 2018 billing cycles.
Interesting. Now, in the last hour, we've learnt and confirmed that the Ghana Water Company top officials have been locked in an emergency meeting after they were notified of these orders. They slapped on them by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. Of course, fashioning out a plan whether to either comply or stop this from coming into force just this Sunday. Thankfully, I've just been joined in the studio by Bawa Munkaila, who is the head of public relations and external affairs at the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. He joins us in the studio. Mr. Munkaila, thank you for your time here on Top Story. This is pretty unprecedented. And you say it appears that you've been probing this for a while.
Yes, that's very
How
true.
long has it been since you started looking into this?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to clarify these issues. The Commission got to know they were not operating the plant since January this year. Ghana Water published on newspaper, that is Daily Graphic, that the plant was halted for renegotiation purposes. But they didn't inform PURC for doing that. So we got to realize since then.
Okay, so since January.
Yes.
But if you realize in January, why are you now imposing these penalties in September?
Yeah, since January, within January, we were going through a major tariff review process. So we're in the process of reviewing the tariff by taking away the component of operating, the cost component of operating the desalination plant. But Ghana Water again wrote to PURC confirming that they will put the plant back into operations. And then they submitted a tariff proposal that included the cost of operating the desalination plant. And that was the tariff that was approved by PURC in July this year.
Okay, so you did the tariffs, and so with the tariffs we saw factored in the cost of the desalination plant.
Exactly.
And you did it only because the water company had written to you and said, we are operating it.
Exactly.
And so give us the cost in the tariff.
Exactly. So after we approved the costs in the tariff for them, we went ahead with our monitoring exercise again. And upon several visits to the plant, we realized that the plant was still shut down. It wasn't in operational. So we wrote again back to Ghana Water. Upon several meetings and several letters to Ghana Water, yet the plant is not in operation.
Have they told you why they can't operate the plant?
The explanation they gave was that they were going to renegotiate the capacity charges with Befesa Desalination Company Limited. And since then, we've not had the newly renegotiated charges. They've not come to inform us whether they've done the renegotiation or not. And we are still holding on to the cost component that they fed us. And that is what we use in the tariff. And the plant is still not in operation.
But 10% reduction in tariff is significant. I mean, how can you expect Ghana Water Company to survive with that much cut in the tariffs that he's taking from customers like myself?
Just like stated in our press release, the 10% is not the absolute amount that is, or the absolute percentage that is going to be taken away from Ghana Water. It includes about 3 components.
True.
The first component is the component of Ghana Water, the cost component of Ghana Water operating the desalination plant, which is the 8.64%. So we are taking away that component because it would have been passed on to the consumer if the plant was in operational,
okay,
but it is not. So you are rather charging consumers to pay more than they are supposed to pay for not using a plant that you were supposed to use.
Okay.
So that is what we are taking away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we approved tariff in July 2018, of which consumers continue to pay for that particular plant, the cost of that particular plant, which is not in operational. So we are asking Ghana Water to pay back the money that the consumers paid them that wasn't due them.
That is the 14 million.
Yes, that is the 14 million. Pay back that money to the consumer that wasn't due you.
Have you thought about the capacity to actually pay?
But they've taken the money from consumers.
But they've probably
With
put
the
that money
revenue
to use already.
Oh, yeah. So that is why we are saying that, yes, instead of refunding the money cash or by way of...
Let me see it reflect in a reduced bill.
The bill.
At the end of the month.
And that is what all has included in the 10.08%.
I see. Just let me bring in the parliamentary committee, of course, that with oversight when it comes to the utilities, particularly water. Let's bring in the ranking member on the Works and Housing Committee, Samson Ahihi himself, used to be a deputy minister for that particular sector. Mr. Ahihi, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you very much, Ivan.
What's your reaction to this?
Let me say good evening to your listeners. I will start by saying that I commend PURC for a good job done, and also to say that Ghana Water Company, by their action, have cheated ordinary consumers. But that is stealing. They lied to PURC to be able to steal from ordinary consumers. And it is rather unfortunate. I warned Ghana Water Company in January when they decided to shut down the desalination plant in Teshi. Because from the look of things, what they have done, they lied to PURC that they were going to operate the plant. And so PURC granted the cost of maintenance, the cost of running the plant as part of the tariff, only to know or later to find out that actually the plant is not being operated. And so taking those monies from ordinary consumers is just nothing but stealing. And for that matter, I think that management of Ghana Water Company, and for that matter, the Afenyomarkin-led board should be surcharged if any financial loss is occurred by Ghana Water Company, because this situation is as a result of their indecision. And so I don't think that Ghana Water Company should be made to suffer. Management of Ghana Water Company have stolen money. They lied to a public institution such as PRC. And that's how we find ourselves here.
So you want the board chairman and the MD to take the cost. They should personally take the cost.
Yes, they should be surcharged. Because one, they lied to PRC. If they have not written the 16th May letter, PRC wouldn't have granted that operational cost as part of the tariffs review. But because they purported to have said that they were going to operate it, PRC also agreed. But from January, as stated by the PRO of PRC, since January, they have shut down the plant. And so continuing to take these huge tariffs from ordinary consumers is just stealing.
I mean, I get what you're saying. Beyond PRC has this. Let me ask PRC. PRC, the suggestion there is levy this on the individuals who took the decision. Is this something that PRC is allowed to do?
PRC, our regulations don't go that far. We don't micromanage the utilities. Okay. We charge the utility, and when it goes there, then they decide who bears the cost. Okay. But what we know is Ghana Water. As
far as you're concerned, you have slapped the sanctions. How they get it paid, it's none of your business. You want it paid.
It has to be paid by Ghana Water Company.
Ghana Water Company. Yes, but Mr. Ahi, what can your committee do about this?
I think that as a matter of urgency, we have to invite the board and, for that matter, management of Ghana Water Company to come and explain to us why the essence of the 16th May letter, why should they lie to PURC in the first place, and then also account for the figures given to us by PURC. They have taken more than 14 million Ghana cedis from the consumers, and so they have to come and account for it, and then indicate to us how they are going to pay this. And I will insist that because of the decision on the part of the board and management, there should be surcharge. If we don't do this, state institutions will continue to misbehave, like Ghana Water Company has done today. And so I will immediately after this interview discuss with my chairman and invite them to appear before the committee, and even send also invitation to PRC for them to come and explain in details to us what they're asking. But on the surface, I want to commend PRC. I think they have done very well. But we should not leave it there. People cannot just stay in their office. Ghana Water Company is even struggling today to pay their salaries at the end of every month. And so if they have to reduce their tariffs by 10%, and then they have to refund 14 million, and also commission, I think in the letter they have stated 542.
Yes, essentially 500,000 cedis.
Yes, 500,000 Ghana cedis also as a compensation. So these problems are on Ghana Water Company because of bad management, mismanagement, and attempt to steal from ordinary Ghanaians.
I'm grateful that you joined us. That's Samson. He is a ranking member on the Works and Housing Committee. And as I've indicated, we checked with the Ghana Water Company if they want to issue a reaction. They said they are in an emergency meeting, and once they're done, they reserve the right to respond to the statement, of course, using our network. Of course, that is allowed. We'll wait for that emergency meeting to end and hear from them. But let's quickly get the thoughts of the Integrated Social Development Center, ISODEC. They've been studying the PRC PURC decision as well. We can speak to the policy analyst there, Leo Shan Quartey, joins us on the line. Mr. Quartey, you've seen the PURC press release. What's your take? What's your reaction to it?
I think our reaction now is mixed because for a very long time we've been looking forward to a strong regulator who is able to take decisions such as we have here. But then again, you look at the whole process and there isn't much information. I don't think what went into these sanctions against the GWCL has been adequately shared with the public. It will be good to have more information as to the specifics that led to this quantum imposed on the GWCL. But it points to a general problem of arbitrariness on even both organizations in terms of how GWCL relate to the public. You have such level of arbitrariness and low level of information sharing with the public. And then we have similar by the PURC now. It will be good to have much more information on what went into these sanctions. The second issue is that this cost will eventually be borne by the consumers. Because how does GWCL raise revenue? It's either through tariff or subventions from government, which basically is our taxes. So maybe the sanctions could have taken some other form which could be more deterrent.
We've just heard from the ranking member on the Works and Housing Committee in Parliament that the sanctions should have been imposed on the board and the management.
I mean, that could be one form, because here you are looking at deterrence. So if you are able to hold particular or specific individuals responsible for the mishap, then maybe that could serve as an incentive for whatever wrong was committed not to be repeated in the future. But then slapping these general sanctions on them, these will eventually be borne by citizens. Like I told you, it's either through tariff or government subventions that GWCL raises its revenue. Yeah, so that's the second point. And then the third point points to the larger problem with privatization, particularly in relation to the desalination plant.
Which is a sort of a government-private, mainly private partnership. Government, of course, was part of it.
And look at the mess that has been created over there, the cost explosion for consumers, and then now the same public is being asked to clean the mess. We have a similar thing going on in electricity now, and we have been raising the alarm over the period. And it's important for us to look at some of these issues, because when the costs arise, then the response is to socialize the cost.
Yeah, and ultimately, your point is that the consumer eventually gets to bear that burden. I'm grateful that you joined us, Mr. Quartey, with ISODEC. Let me come to you, Bawa. What's your response to that? That this eventually will circle back to the customer?
No, not at all. Why? Because it would only lead to reduction in the revenue of Ghana Water. Ghana Water is not compensating.
But if the Ghana Water revenue reduces, it affects the ability to deliver the services to me in my house. If I don't get water in my house because you slap them with a sanction, I will be forced to go and buy water from tankers, pay higher for it, probably 50, 40 cedis, whatever, later they will pump for me. That is ultimate cost to me. That's his explanation.
With their installed capacity, Ghana Water, they should be able to continue with the existing amount of water they are producing to customers without any effect.
In spite of the sanctions that you propose.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
I'm grateful that you join us. Bawa is the head of PR and external affairs at the PURC, and thank you very much for speaking to us on this. And you want to join a conversation, as you've heard, this affects you, your pocket, as far as water, which is really life. And so I want to hear from you on WhatsApp if you can, 0244340437 on that. But also, in the last few minutes, there's a statement coming in, another big story that has been making the round since yesterday. The Men's Gold situation with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We just received another letter written by lawyers of Men's Gold to the Securities and Exchange Commission. I want to quickly read that for you. He says, this letter is further to our letter of yesterday, the 12th of September 2018, in respect of the above mentioned, in which we informed you of the difficulties associated with an immediate shutdown of our client's operations. In the interim period, we write to respectfully request for a meeting within the coming week to resolve this impasse. It is important that this is done with some alacrity to ensure that the affairs of our client and its customers are kept in proper stead. We must reiterate the point that our client is not engaged in any capital market activity. This letter is without prejudice to the rights of our client. We trust that you will find this letter useful. Thank you. So, of course, now we know that Men's Gold is looking for an opportunity to sit down with the SEC to resolve this matter. As we've also heard today, they've suspended trading for a while as they seek to resolve this with the SEC. And this is copied to the Director General, Head Audit and Risk Management, IT. Also, undersigned is Nana Pia Mensah, as the Chief Executive Officer of Men's Gold Ghana Limited. Of course, another big story today that we cannot end today's top story, because in the next 2 or 3 minutes, we'll be crossing over shortly to the City Centre, University of Ghana. We will not be able to bring you Newsnight, but we cannot end the bulletin without revisiting what happened today with the state funeral for the late illustrious son of Ghana, but also son of the world, Mr. Kofi Annan, who has been buried today. This is a wrap of what happened today, in case you missed it.
We shall all